Hey guys, today we're going to talk about imagery. So imagery is the use of sensory details in description, and an author can appeal to one or more of the reader's five senses when using imagery. So an author can appeal to your sense of sight, touch, hearing, smell, or taste. Authors try to show and not tell. And this just means that they're showing the reader the scene when they use descriptive sensory language. Here's an example. The trees bent and strained in the wind, threatening to snap in half with every gust. So this is a way to describe how heavy the wind is blowing without just saying it in a boring, less sensory way. So if a writer tells rather than shows, it's just less interesting to read, so it doesn't engage us in the same way. It was really windy. Right? That doesn't really grab you in the same way that that first description did. So it's really important to think about why a writer is choosing more sensory detail and being really descriptive in their writing. And this is because when imagery is done well, it can help you better imagine the scene and even make you feel like you're in the midst of the action. So the role of imagery in writing is pretty important because analyzing imagery can help us determine the attitude of a character or a narrator or a speaker. And tone can be conveyed through word choices and connotations. And remember we said in class that connotation is like the feeling connected to the word. So words that create imagery can also develop tone. So a lot of the time, if you look at the imagery really closely and think about what is being shown, it can also help you develop tone. This is a quote from a short story called The Yellow Wallpaper. This has a lot of really good imagery in it, so see if you can kind of catch the specific sensory detail. The color is repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow turning sunlight. It is a dull yet lurid orange in some places, a sticky sulfur tint in others. No wonder the children hated it. I should hate it myself if I had to live in this room long. So you can hear in that sensory description, the description of the colors as being revolting and repellent, unclean, faded, dull, and even saying how the children hated it. These are all details that help us understand the overall tone of this section of text. And the tone here really is sort of hateful and disgusted. Here's another example from a poem. This is a poem by Robert Frost. This is just a really short part of it. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. So you're getting a lot of senses here, right? So you have the darkest evening of the year and the frozen lake. You can kind of picture those. The harness bells of this horse shaking, so you hear the jingling. And the sound of the sweep of wind, so you can kind of imagine like a light gust of wind. And then the downy flake, the feeling of those soft, sort of fluttery flakes. So again, these words really help you imagine this scene that the poet's trying to create for us. So to sum up, imagery is descriptive language. It appeals to one or more of the five senses. And when we analyze imagery and really look at what is being described and how it's described, it can also help us determine the tone. So imagery is linked to tone. It also helps us understand just really what's happening in the story because we can really picture it if we can connect it to our senses. All right, guys, that is it for imagery. So make sure your notes are filled out and I'll talk to you soon.